Hello, everyone. Welcome to Progressive HR Live. I am your host, Corrine Woodman Hollebeck. I'm the founder of Progressive HR and the host of Progressive HR Live, as well as a AI and Web3 HR tech advisor. I'm here today with Tobba Vigfusdottir, who is the founder and CEO of Cara Connect, and we're going to be talking all about wellness and mental health, and specifically the differences between Nordic and the US model. So how are you today, Tobba?
I am very well. How are you, Corrine? Thank you for having me.
Yeah. No, this has been a long time coming. I know that we have been connected for, oh my gosh, I think a year almost.
Probably.
And yeah. And I'm just so excited about what you're doing with Cara Connect and everybody that is going to be helped with your platform and hopefully spread, into throughout Europe and then come over and help us out in the US. So audience members, if you are joining us today, let us know who you are and where you are streaming from. And we're going to get into our first question for Tobba. And again, this is an interactive live stream. So if you have questions for Tobba in the flow of the conversation, go ahead and add those to the comments and we'll answer those live. All set, Tobba?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. All right. So I want to know, or at least I'd like to have the audience know, how is Cara Connect redefining the mental health space?
Yes, thank you. So Cara Connect builds well-being hubs for companies. Probably not like a new idea, but it does it very differently from other EAPs or services. So we customize the well-being hub and we add the white label, the hub for the company, but we also customize the access points to very, very different professional services. We have nutritionists, sleep therapists, speech therapists, psychologists and mental health professionals, coaches. We have over 60 kinds of provisions and 3,000 professionals. And what we do is we offer those professionals to the employee base, and the company decides to pay for how many sessions they want to support, because the two biggest barriers to help are access and availability, and secondly, costs. So the company will be taking those two away to make sure that people get the help they need. So this is very different from the current status of things. Usually it's an email or a phone number where you're triaged, but we offer so many professional service providers that the employees can pick and choose and take responsibility of getting help themselves, and then continue on with the same professionals when they need to or if they need to.
Thank you, Tobba. So I want to make sure I've been mispronouncing the name. I've been calling it Cara Connect, but it's Cara Connect.
Well, I guess that's the my Nordic pronunciation. So you can do either, of course. It's Cara is an Icelandic women's name, but it also associates with the Spanish word cara, which is face. So it's all over the place. But the connect word was added to display that we were connecting three people together: the payers, the providers, and the employees.
I love that. I love that, how that kind of etymology of the name. So I speak Spanish, so I will continue now to call it Cara Connect.
Okay.
Because I can get that pronunciation. All right, so let's go on to our second question. And audience, let us know who you are, where you're joining us from. Go ahead and add conversation and comments to our comments area. And if you have any questions for Tobba or myself, we'll go ahead and add those to the comments and we'll answer your questions in the flow of our conversation. So talking about the Nordic model versus the US model, or maybe even the European model, is Cara Connect built on the Nordic model?
Yes. So the story goes that I studied in the U.S. in the University of Washington, actually, and I studied developmental psychology, and I was obsessed with metacognition, which is your ability to think about your thoughts. And when you start thinking about that, you also learn about the deviations from that process. So that kind of funneled me into how we support children and adults that have lack of communication skills and the understanding of metacognition or metacognitive abilities. So this blew me to back home, and I ended up being a politician, looking at the actual, how the Nordics pay quite a bit of taxes, right? But we funnel it through the school system so everybody has access to help. But we did have a problem. We had the money, and we threw the money at the problem, but the kids were not getting the help that they needed. So I was in the schools trying to figure out how we can, provide to a small kindergarten the different professional services that the children needed. And this was pretty tough job because the professionals were hard to be in the car. You didn't want them to be in the car, right? The professionals in the schools were sometimes not capable of helping, and so we had that same idea problem that I described. We had the payer that was different from the user, and then we had the professionals all over the place and very scarce resource of those. So short to cut over a lot of years there, I ended up starting the company, thinking about it from an Uber model, but very differently, which I remember very clearly, that I didn't want to monetize the professionals themselves. I could see they were almost just women. They were working from home or from a clinic where they were already taking a cut away from their fees. So from the beginning, we've always treated the professionals as equals and partners. We pay them the right fair amount, which is very different from our competitors that usually monetize them. So the idea is to build an ecosystem of access points to the right kind of help, not just anything, but the right kind of help for different problems with people, which, we go through different stages of life and we have different problems at each point in life. I'm 51 and I'm going through menopause and I need different professional services. It might not be a psychologist that I need. I need somebody that can help me with my hormones. My son might need something totally different, and I might also just need help with my aging parents. So everybody goes through different life stages and needs different professional services, and the professionals have actually educated themselves to be very specific, and that was always the problem. I had a child in a kindergarten that needed speech therapy, and there was nobody available. And the speech therapist that was available didn't know how to attack that problem that child had. So lo and behold, if you use the technology opportunities of connections and, vetting the right professionals and saying what they do, we could open up a door, just like a book a table, basically, and the employees can book the right kind of help they need.
And I would say that some employees, maybe they don't even know what kind of help they need. And so does also Cara provide kind of like maybe a way for them to kind of figure out who or what kind of help that they need?
Exactly. So to jump back into the Nordic model, it's about a safety net. So that's one point, Corinne, is the safety net in the Nordics is that everybody is responsible. So the state, the municipalities, the employers, and families and friends are responsible to make sure that somebody that is in need gets some help. So employers have, through quite a number of generations, been able to help employees with getting help. But right now, it's beyond need. It's exploding with Gen Z coming in and a lot of different problems after COVID. 30% of the manager's time is now spent on figuring this out. So we are the partners of the employers or the HR managers to figure out what should be available and where they define luxury from help and health, right? Because some would like to offer massage, and that's fine, but others will only want to provide mental health. And that's just the idea of the company. So we work with them, figure out, for example, the medium age of the company. If it's a very young company, you might, deliver quite a number of coaches that work with communication skills and setting boundaries or whatever it is. So we can also just change it around if the managers think they need to address something specific. So it's customized and high service actually that the HR professionals are getting.
So when we talk about the Nordic model, I want to put this into context for everybody. Nordic countries are Iceland, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, and am I missing one?
The Faroe Islands.
The Faroe Islands. Okay. And all these countries operate on this kind of societal model that you were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any kind of filter into the rest of Europe that you're seeing right now with the model?
So we see that everybody understands that the problem is rising very rapidly, and both states, and we're now in Ireland and the UK, both of those states are realizing that everyone, the schools and the employers and the system, needs to do better. If the schools are not addressing the problem, which is, I think, is all over the world, not taken seriously enough, it will end. The problem just moves up the ladder, and it ends up being a benefit case on the state. So it's a win-win for everybody to make sure that everybody gets help whenever there's a crisis in their family or they are stressed. It's not necessarily always connected to work. And I think that's a really big change in the few years, that we're accepting that work problems are not just, they're always something else. They're, I'm a human being. I have all kinds of problems around me, and I can't say I'm stressed just because I have a load of things on my desk. There's something else going on. So we can see that this is flowing into the conversation, that the HR managers understand that management needs to address all kinds of problems. It's not just if you're stressed because of your manager. It's stress in general, or anxiety, or whatever it is that is bothering you. And our vision is the access points. If there are more access points, it will get to be a more preventative kind of service, that if I am kind of thinking, oh, my heat flashes, I need to see somebody about it, or not getting any help and stopping work for 2 years, which is a huge problem here in the Nordics. Women are doomed to leave the workplace because they're not getting the right therapy when they're going through menopause. So all kinds of things like that, if we catch it a little earlier, it's going to cost a minuscule amount of providing this access point to not losing people from work, or hiring or training new people.
I have so many questions and so many things I want to talk to you about. Like, my head is just exploding right now, but I really want to go to our audience, because we had a few people kind of check in, and we have a very large audience that is very in-depthly listening to us, our conversation. And so I know our large audience, let us know who you are, where you're streaming from, and if you have any questions for us. And I do apologize for any of the lag errors that we've been having on this live stream. I know that LinkedIn has just changed their events slightly. So I do apologize again to our audience for the lags that we're having at the beginning of this conversation. This is Angelica. There we go. Okay, so LinkedIn user streaming from Texas. This is Angelica Gonzalez. And then we have, I apologize if I mispronounce your name, Blythen from Dublin, from Ireland, and my good friend Mary from Australia is streaming in. Hi, Mary. Thank you so much for joining us. And then we also have Heidi, also from Ireland. So, audience, if you haven't introduced yourself yet, or have any questions for Tobba or myself about the conversation we're having, go ahead and add those to the comments. We'd love to know who you are, where you're streaming from, and what did you want to get out of this conversation? Mm-hmm. So thank you, everybody, again, also for introducing yourselves. So we have these questions that we've set up already, Tobba, but I really want to talk about, I kind of want to jump, because we were talking about, you said that the access points are one of the main issues in getting help. I also think the stigma around mental health, and the stigma around everything that we're talking about, menopause and learning disabilities, that's also a big issue. And how do you kind of work to solve that?
Yeah, so when we've launched, usually it's the CEO or a high-ranking manager that launches this for the whole company. we make sure that we have a diverse set of people there, providers and professionals that the employees can choose from. And one of the main things, in my opinion, is to provide different things there so they can say to each other at work, oh, I used Cara for a nutritionist, and take down this lever of everybody seeing a mental health professional. So I have such a high regard for all these professionals. They've worked so hard to get their diplomas and their education, and they've dove into all kinds of different specific problems, social anxiety and what have you. And you have to kind of make sure that the employees see all kinds of different profiles. And that's one way of driving the stigma down. The main way, however, is that it comes down top bottom in the company. So if there is a manager that talks about anxiety or how he dealt with things, or posts, I'm going to take 3 weeks off to recharge, talks about well-being and how they proceed with well-being, is super important for stigma. It's super important that the well-being is coming down, top down, not bottom up. It's not, in my opinion, again, enough to have mental health advocates all over the company if the management is not talking about it. No stigma change if the management doesn't say, I understand that 20% of you have mental health problems. We are going to give you access to this. You don't have to talk to anybody. You just book and see somebody, but please do. You don't have to say anything to your line manager or your next in office next to you. Just go ahead and try it out and see if you can get help. This is going to blow out of proportions with Gen Z coming in. It's even more. 45%, 46% of them have anxiety and depression. And everybody's kind of like, I know the US is a little further along in this discussion, but in Europe, we're a little bit behind accepting that this is a problem stemming from social media and a few other problems. But we are welcoming a generation that is highly educated, and they don't have as much stigma. So I roll back to your question. So they will ask the manager, how can you support my mental health? They will ask. And the stigma is on the other side often. It's the older person that are like, oh, what are you saying? Should I do something? And they panic a little bit. But
Mhm.
this is highly important in companies today, that the management talks about this right away. If they haven't, put it on the table and say, hey guys, should we focus on well-being and the discussion in the company, even though you don't offer anything, just start with a discussion.
And I do think that there's this idea about being a more an empathetic manager, which I think this is an important idea, and that we all need to be more empathetic. What I try to wrap my brain in around is how empathetic before it becomes that somebody could take advantage of.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of those types of questions?
Yes. So my line of thought there is that not everybody can be that perfect person to talk to. And this is why we think it's super important that the line manager know about the Wellbeing Hub in the company, so they can at least say, did you know about this? I'm not a psychologist, but here is a lot of people that you talk to. Can I help you get that through? Is there something that is missing on the Wellbeing Hub? And then we can provide that. So I'm not sure you can teach empathy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the nurture side of things. I think it's hard for people that don't have empathy to learn it, but they can learn and remember to use the H words, the how are you, open questions, and not start helping them out, not say, have you tried this and how have you tried that, but just listen. So empathetic people can do that quite well, I think, but the ones that have to learn, they should just learn to listen and say, how can I help? And not just tell them what to do. That's very important.
It's really interesting because I grew up with a non-empathetic parental construct. But I myself am a very empathetic person, but then I go back to learned behaviors from my childhood.
Yeah.
So I'm often the person that wants to ask how you are, but then we'll follow up with like, have you tried this?
Yes.
So, and it's a struggle. It is a struggle.
Yeah, it's not necessarily. I think I have a similar approach. I tend to want to help a lot. I tend to start saying, have you tried? And it's very important to not do that, because that kind of is annoying when you're feeling bad and you haven't done any of it really.
So I'm going to go to our audience really quick because we have a few questions here and a few people introduce themselves. So we have a LinkedIn user from Houston, Texas. And I apologize. I don't know what's going on, but my view of the stream is not working. And so anyone that says LinkedIn user, I'm not sure who they are. So I do apologize, audience. But Francisco joined us from Dublin, Ireland. And then Nidhi joined us from New Jersey. And then we also have a LinkedIn user from Essex, England. We do have a question for you, Tobba. And again, I apologize, I don't know who this is from. So thinking about a Nordic client of mine and his difficulties in communicating with employees from other cultures, what is the best approach you would recommend we use with this leader to improve his communications around an inclusive and safe environment?
Yes, so Nordic people have, Nordic is not all the same, of course, but they have kind of a, they're connected together, very connected. They have a family, strong family values, and they meet their families. So they're a little bit harder to get to know. So friendships for them develop over dozens of years, not months. So that's one characteristic I would think about in this scenario. I would definitely look at a coach that will open up the communications channels for that person. Maybe on the side of saying age questions and just ask out loud. I would predict this person would be more closed, and now I don't know anything, but that would probably be a classic behavior from a kind of a stereotype of a Nordic person. People that come and live in Nordic places, they tend to say, oh, it's very hard to get into their homes. And I think it's true. They're very courteous and nice, but you really never invited into their homes. It's a closed kind of knit center. And so I'm not sure if this person lives in the Nordics or not. Maybe they're a little bit lonely in a new place as well.
Thank you so much for that. And that question, my LinkedIn stream started working again. It was from Elena Sarango Muñiz.
Okay.
So Muñiz, sorry.
Okay. Wow.
So back to our questions, and we've been moving around a lot. So I'm just kind of trying to figure out where we kind of are in the conversation. I think it'd be good to talk about and go back to this because I know we mentioned a little bit about it. But what are some of the systemic problems people face in getting the proper support to get better inside and outside the workplace?
Yes, I think it's both the same outside and inside. It's the access points, where to go. We're still in a phase where people call a friend to ask about where to go. And it's not a good place to be in because you might not want to talk to your friend. And I still get, because I'm working in this area, I get a lot of phone calls from a lot of people to ask me, who should this person see? And this is not a very accessible way of getting help. And it actually comes down to those that have less access points in general, like less friends, less money. So this is the first problem. The second problem is costs. So these two are the most huge, the reasons why people are not getting help. And we are enabling with Cara, we're enabling the companies to take those two barriers away. There's availability. You can book a session right within that week with all kinds of professionals, and the companies are paying the cost at least a few sessions in at least. So we're breaking those two barriers away. But the third one that is not as much talked about and not as much research is actually the right kind of help, like I said before. So a lot of people take a step to see someone, and then they go to one session and they leave and like, oh, I knew this was not for me. But it's usually because they didn't hit the right kind of help that they needed, or there was not a match. And I know professionals are supposed to say to you, if you don't like this session, I would, recommend these. But it doesn't really work really well either. The professionals want to try 3 sessions to build trust, right? And then they press you for problems. But the problem is that a lot of people go to one session and then they go home and say, oh, psychologist isn't for me. So I really highly recommend all of you out there to remind people to try someone else, because this is one of our biggest problems, how to move them from one to the other. And that's why we are offering all these kinds of professionals, because you might just want to connect with somebody that has your language and your culture, and that could be enough to talk to.
So speaking about this this topic, is one of the problems we have in the US is that accessibility is really, really difficult, because you have to go to your doctor. You have to tell your doctor that you're having these feelings or these problems. And then your doctor recommends or sends a recommendation to someone. And then you call them and they're completely booked. And you have to wait months and months and months and months, especially for children's psychologists, to get an appointment. And then you go in and you find out that that's not a match. This person doesn't work for you. So then you have to wait another month and month and month and month to get just someone to talk to. And it should be easier. It should be easier.
I know you have a double take there in the US. All these insurance systems are complicating things. We try, at least in Europe, we try to have it a little bit more open, but the costs then fall upon yourself, right? So you have to claim it. You can claim in insurance or with health insurance and systems like in the Nordics, but they have to be viable and vetted by the system, right? But this is a huge problem. I'm not going to say we are solving it by ourselves, but the problem, if you think about it from the professional side, they have around 33% cancellations. They have a very little means to see how things are progressing or changing in their clientele. So they always have to kind of figure out how to fill all their slots. And I do think technology can help quite a bit. And I do have ideas that I think will help a lot, which are the AI things that are coming out. They might actually help with the questions and see if the match is right. So yeah, now you have that question. We do have a lot of time lag behind us with AI. We don't have any mega databases about the brain or brain development. So we don't have any databases with therapy sessions in it yet, but they're building right now. So what I think is going to happen is that there will be like an assistant to the professionals, doing what you were asking me, like figuring out, is this the right match for us? Asking about, the child or whoever is in trouble, trying to get those information, and then saying, AI can help. This problem should probably go to a neurological doctor or whatever it is. So this is going to help. And then AI will also help train new professionals. It will be like on the side when you're having a discussion with a client and telling them, you might want to ask now this. And then the training system gets better and better, and we'll be able to do a lot more. Our view in Cara Connect is to build, kind of help you phrase the question. That's one of the barriers that I didn't mention, is that a lot of people that do have problems, they don't know how to ask or open the conversation. So that's one thing that we would love to see. Ask people to kind of let an AI bot help you phrase the questions that you have and open up a little bit more in the beginning, all towards optimizing the use of this very precious professional that has a lot of information in their brain.
I love that. Thank you so much. So we could, there's two other questions we wanted to talk about, and that's the employee assistance programs and also the snowflake, what I would call the snowflake phenomena. Which one would you like to talk about first?
Well, let's start with Gen Z and
Okay.
Alpha. Yeah. So when we talked to prepare, I mentioned the snowflake phenomenon which is a stereotype in the UK at least, saying that the kids that are Gen Z from 1997 to 2012, I actually have 4 in that frame, are just lazy and entitled. And I am debating that with everyone. I say, absolutely not. They're super smart, they're most educated, they're very strong values, and they're asking us hard questions. They're not being entitled, they're just asking the right questions, and we don't necessarily have the answer. For example, okay, Corinne, what is a job? I can't answer, well, it's a place where you go to and you work from 8 to 4 or 9 to 5. That's gone. I have to define it in a next level at least. It's a project that you're working on and you get paid for. And then they're like, yeah, I get that, but what's it doing? What is the job doing? And they're going to be asking these super hard questions, which is usually a strategy question. And the companies are going to, really know what they are about, their brand. Does it stay on task? Are they moving the needle towards better environments or better life expectancy or life balance? They're also going to ask, why should I work for you, Mr. Lawyer, 24/7? And I don't even see a client. Why should I do that and maybe just rent a little more less expensive apartment and do different things as gardening? So I love that about them. They're actually pushing the boundaries. They're saying, we had 8-hour shifts, in the 1920s when we started putting the light on in the production line, and we still have 8-hour shifts. And my brain is not necessarily good at 8-hour shifts. Maybe it's, it has to take a few hour break and start again. And this is what I love about them. And then they come into the workplace with all this anxiety and stress. So the HR managers have to kind of reboot a little bit and say, okay, I'm going to have to tell them a little bit more about the structure of the company, why we are doing things, what their job is going to do towards that goal. And then I'm going to have to tell them what access of support I'm going to give them and how they're going to balance their life. And here, and I haven't talked about this anywhere yet, is feministic changes. So all of a sudden, all women are working. Mm-hmm. And then we are still talking about 8-hour jobs, and both parents are working 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever it is. And the child is kind of like in between. And I think this is also affecting the discussion. Like, how are you going to balance your life? And we've all just done it. We thought there were no other ways, but they're going to say, hey, this is not going to work. We're not going to have a happy life working. And then the child is just growing up in third place. So all these questions are amazing. And I think calling them snowflake is just super naive, actually.
No, yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think how you just laid it out for us is very thoughtful and something that I don't think a lot of people have actually just sat down and thought about. Because our brain tracks to what we know, which is you're lazy, or you've been coddled,
and it's what we know. Yeah, and it's our fault, not parents, but as a society, it's our fault that we gave them the phone, we gave them the selfie stick, and then we gave them social media access, and it's actually impacting their brain. That's why they're more stressed. They're stressed that they can't have the life that they see online. So they give up, locus of control, which is an important thing in our life, making sure that I impact my own life. I believe I have the power to change my life. This is going down very aggressively. So why would they, if they feel they can't do anything, they're saying everybody else impacts my life, and it's a very sad idea. So it's ours to fix, in my opinion.
That's interesting, because I know the dangers of social media, and I've never thought about how kids are looking at the social media and like looking at the Kardashians or looking at Charlie D'Amelio or Mr. Beast and saying, well, if I can't have that level of life, then why do I want to try?
And especially when you're a little bit younger. When you're 18, you understand this is all for show. But when you're, 13 to 16, when your brain connections are actually sticking together, all of a sudden you've stuck together anxious modes of things and fear of missing out and all these things where you're supposed to be kind of climbing trees and kissing boys beneath the tree. But they're still inside. They're just communicating like this, and everything gets excessive. And the social media is showing you sensational things more than others, and it's proven that media impacts your mental health. And this is like triple the kinds of media that we saw. So they see a very bleak look of the world, actually.
So I think that's interesting. And the comparison I want to make is that, so I have two children, and my youngest loves like Roblox. And the one reason she loves Roblox, because she's a very like open, curious child. She loves Roblox because she can play with and connect with people that are, that she couldn't access just being in where she is. So she doesn't necessarily look at it as like, there's something I'm lacking. She's looking at it as there's something that I'm getting from this.
So games are much better than social media. So if you, as a parent, are listening, try to get them. I mean, I'm paying my child to not go on TikTok. Seriously, I'm paying an extra for not doing it because I just know the complications that I could be having later on. So if you can keep them away from this with all kinds of other things instead, thinking about the costs in the future of this horrible media, then I would. So games seem to be much better. So playing, and she probably has her friends on FaceTime and they're laughing. They're all playing the same game. That's a totally different thing. But now research is showing, though, however, when they turn it off, they feel lonely. But if they're in a setting together, they won't feel lonely when people leave. So there is a difference, but it's much better than social media, just scrolling, doom scrolling, and just thinking about, oh, I can't do this, so it's horrible. I want to do this, but I don't want to stand up. And, it kind of gets you. And I think all adults connect, but we know that this is all for show. Or most of us.
But I think adults also have those feelings that you were describing, because I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and I've built a lot of friendships and a lot of interesting connections through LinkedIn. And when I'm not talking to those people, I do feel a little bit lonely. I'm like, where am I gonna? I would like to see what people are doing, and I come off, and I'm just like, But then sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm enough. It's enough. I can't take it anymore. I got a headache.
And you know how online meetings have been after COVID, they're kind of starting right on the point. Nobody's late. You're missing that, how was traffic? How was the weather? How are you doing? It kind of left us. So we're just really productive. We just start the meeting and we just start working. So for us, it's super important to hear, hey, Corinne, how was your weekend? I mean, did you do something fun? And take 10 minutes to do that for work.
So I want to get to, actually, before I go to our last questions, because we're kind of wrapping up now, do you have any questions for the audience, Tobba?
I would just love to hear if this resonates, if any of this makes sense for them. And I just want to say I'm reading two professors in the US, and the US is a little bit, beyond Europe. So I saw there are a couple of Dublin. So we have a Dublin office, Corinne. So I saw there were some Dublin people there. And please just reach out if you want to know more. I do deliver those Gen Z like a little bit, half an hour show things for employers to understand them a little bit better. But if this resonates or not would be really nice to know.
And you do that complimentary?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So anyone, if you're watching today, or if you're watching on the replay and you'd like to know a little bit more about Cara Connect, and some of the solutions that they offer for engaging and helping out your employee workforce and Gen Z, please go ahead and connect with Tobba or Cara Connect on LinkedIn. But you can also visit hello at Cara Connect, where they have lots of resources. And Francisco, if you're on the stream still, could you go ahead and add a link to hello at Cara Connect in the comments, as well as a link to Cara Connect's LinkedIn company page and also Tobba's page. Then we can give everybody resources and they can reach out.
Thank you.
So yeah, and audience, again, let us know, does this resonate? Or you're very welcome to talk to myself or Tobba offline. Just DM us, hit us up in our DMs to talk about this. All right, so I am looking at, and let's get back to the question about traditional employee assistant programs. So I wanted to ask, and I'm going to find this question here. What's the biggest challenge with traditional EAPs?
Yeah, so we started this on the idea of the Nordic model. I didn't realize what EAP were until we entered the European market, really. They are from the 1940s, and which is fine. And at that point, they were revolutionary, and nobody talked about anything that regarded mental health at that point. But the business models around them are broken, in my opinion. So the business model works so that it's almost free to put it up in the company, and it's an email and a phone number access point, and it should include a few sessions per employee. But now, when a lot of people need help, it's actually pushing people away because it's too cheap to service. So right now, I think a lot of employers are in a mixed, or like a pickle, basically. They need to give access to help, but it's coming back to their table from the EAPs, because the EAPs are saying, oh, this is too serious for us, or, oh, we don't have the right professional, or, oh, you're fine, and pushing it back to them. So what is the challenge right now is that the employers have to realize there is no free lunch. You have to pay the professionals for the services that they provide. And you can't really deal with EAPs that actually monetize just the professionals, because the quality will go down. So these are the few. I know many of them are doing great, but the model itself has to change. And I welcome them to change it, because that would be amazing, because we can't do everything. There's a huge market out there, but they really need to, the companies need to start asking the right questions. How many sessions have you provided? How many people got help? How many professionals do you offer? What happens when somebody calls or emails? And we've heard from the BBC uncovering horrible stories from the professionals saying we were just crying ourselves because we knew we were locking out somebody that was really in need of help. So this is a liability in the end. The company will get in trouble at some point if there's not real help on the other end of the line.
When my experience, and going back to my corporate HR days, is that there's an excitement over putting out a employee assistance program, but then when you delved really deeper into it, the savings weren't there. I mean, the employee savings, or the employee being able to access help at a discounted rate. Well, the rate that they're still having to pay, like that 15% off of a divorce lawyer, isn't helping anyone, because it is so expensive. And when I think it's like over 50% of, and I'm talking about the US, over 50% of the US lives paycheck to paycheck. And there's no way that they can even cover, even with a discount, can cover that.
And right now, nobody has any savings. Nobody. We're looking at the problem as if, and many of our prospective clients say, can you put the Wellbeing Hub up and make it available, but we're not paying? And we just say, no, it's not going to work. Nobody's going to book anything because there's problems. Definitely there's problems, but the cost is just too much. But if you start them, they might see the value of going forward, going further. And what we see, for example, in a hospital that is using us, I mean, on average, 20% of the employees are using the hub in our case. That's way more than the EAPs are around 1 to 2%. So you can see there are problems. Yeah. But we also get employees that really need more help. And then we have a system in place where the professional can say, I really think the company should pay forward for this person. So we make sure that those that are most sick still get support.
That's amazing. Thank you for the work that you do and the work that your team does.
Thank you, Corinne, for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, audience, this is our time. I would definitely like to talk with Tobba more because I think this is a fascinating conversation. And so, Tobba, would you come back maybe in quarter 3 and talk to us more? I think that would be fantastic.
It would be amazing. Thank you, Corinne.
So audience, just letting you know, our next Progressive HR Live is in May, and our guest is Jessica Bagley, the CPO with Very, and we're going to talk about being a CPO in a tech-driven organization, so which is very important right now. So and they can have a completely remote staff, and so it's basically a remote CPO in a tech-driven organization. So thank you so much, Tobba, for joining me. Francisco, thank you for being in the comments and adding those resources. And audience, thank you again for sharing your time with us. I know that you have a lot going on, and the Progressive HR team greatly appreciate you being here today. So thank you, everybody, and we will see you in May. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.